And I'd like to welcome you once again to Facilitating Small Group Discussions Online using Blackboard Collaborate Breakout Groups. This is a tool that I've used in my own classes. It's really a nice tool to be able to hook up with your students, to be able to make sure that they're all together in one place. And you can actually recreate what you do in a face-to-face environment quite nicely for collaborative activities. Just good to see. Babette, you have your microphone on. Did you want to ask a question?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you very clearly.
Okay. All I was going to say, and I'm a little bit slow here, but that when we leave the session, I just did a workshop yesterday, a webinar with Jennifer Mattingly. All I was going to chime in was that thing up there on the left where you check out, she called it the hamburger.
Oh, well, it kind of looks like a hamburger. You know what? I'm all right with calling it a hamburger too, as long as people
okay.
get it with its use. Thank you, Babette. Appreciate that. Okay. So in today's session, well, I probably should introduce myself. I'm Dan Cabrera, the Multimedia Coordinator, and I teach a lot of workshops related to multimedia, including the use of screencasting and a lot of video and a lot of audio, and creation of lectures. Okay, you can see there's my contact information. In today's session, we'll be talking about, I have agenda, but really it's the objectives for the workshop. And that is, by the end of this workshop, you will be able to describe the purpose and function of a breakout group, what it is and how it's used. You'll be able to list the 4 main steps involved in the application of breakout groups. You'll detail the primary functional features, and you'll be able to identify how a moderator, that would be you as the instructor, can monitor and facilitate collaborative activity with your students while they're in breakout groups. How to share files to different breakout groups, or all of them, and how to end a breakout group activity and then have students debrief with you. Okay, and that's sort of the benefit of this. So I want to just list out the 4 steps in a breakout group that are most important, and if these are the only things you take away, it's going to be a lot of important information. Initially, when you start thinking about using breakout groups, before you even get into Blackboard, you want to start thinking about the nature of the activities, of the collaborative activities you want to have your students engaged in. And so there's a whole range of different possibilities for how you want your students to talk with each other, to share information, to be able to work with each other, to solve problems, to come up with new information. And so this is all done well before you actually implement the session. You also, then the next step is to log into your Blackboard course. Once you've decided that, to log into your Blackboard course and enter the Blackboard Collaborate session. And that's followed by creating breakout groups, assigning students, and then running the activities. And we actually will do a breakout group activity with everyone in today's session. And then finally, end the breakout groups and debrief. What was the result of the session? What's the benefit? Now, typically, what you're going to see is a few slides with far more content than I usually use, but because we're talking about this in an online environment instead of face-to-face, I want to make sure that you guys have documentation of what I'm saying so that you can always come back here and see what it was that was so important. I also wanted to mention that typically what I'm doing today is in a face-to-face environment, so that students can actually be in a breakout room, and they can also see me as the instructor in the main room up on the big screen. However, since you guys don't have that advantage, I'm going to try to do a lot of screen captures that I've done so that you can actually see what to expect when you do this yourself, as well as actually being in the breakout room session. So breakout groups have many of the same features as we have here in the main room, whereas in the main room we're here to share information and not really talk about collaboration as much. We use the breakout groups to facilitate small group collaboration. It's really difficult to have a collaboration if you have 30 people in the same session. Probably it's considered more effective to break it down into smaller groups and give people individual activities or tasks so they can work on it and then share it later on. What you want to do is you want to challenge your students. You want to allow them to work together in addressing questions that you have that you want folks to be able to work on. And a moderator, which is a faculty member, you are empowered to create groups and to place session attendees or students into these breakout groups. But you also have the ability to move around in groups to engage with your students when they're working in groups. So I'd like you to think of the face-to-face environment where maybe you have everyone in one location, and then you ask them to break up into groups of 3 and maybe sort of separate from each other so they're not all sitting together. And then solve a problem, work on some issue, and then come back to the class later on. Well, in an online environment, we can actually replicate that by putting students in their own separate groups and be able to communicate with each other much as they would if they were face-to-face. So to facilitate small group collaboration, you as the moderator will create the breakout groups, and they are separate from the main room. The distinction is, well, actually not much of a distinction, actually. It's almost the same. Breakout groups have their very own audio, video, whiteboard, application sharing, and chat. So although you as the moderator have that ability to, when the students go into the breakout rooms, they have the ability to do all the things that you can do as a moderator, which is great because you want them to be able to have as many tools as they need to successfully collaborate. But any collaboration that takes place in a group is really going to be independent of the main group. Of the main room, I should say, and any of the other groups. Everyone's working within their own small group. So what's important is that what is said or viewed in a breakout room will not be captured in any session recording. So you know how we record all of our sessions. Once folks go into the breakout room, that's not going to happen. What I've been told by Blackboard Collaborate support is that if you're recording and everyone goes into a breakout room, the session recording is stopped temporarily. When everyone returns to the session, that's going to start up again, just for your information. Do you want to make sure that it is, in fact, started up again? I know what people are saying, but sometimes I'm not altogether trusting. All right. So when you start your breakout rooms, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to very briefly go over this material, then we're going to go back in much greater detail, and that's going to be where I have all these screen captures and walk through you through the steps. So in starting breakout groups, you can choose to have Collaborate create and randomly assign groups to breakout groups for you, or you could manually do it yourself. And some people like to have that sense of control and do that. We're looking at convenience as well as ability. So every participant in the group is a presenter. I had mentioned just a few seconds ago that everyone has all of those features to be able to share your whiteboard. But I'm going to turn your microphone on just for a while, unless you have a question. Thank you. You have the same capabilities, almost the same capabilities as a moderator. So as you as a student with the presenter role status, you can upload materials, you can advance slides, you can do an application share if you want to. So all these things are really necessary to be able to communicate and share information with your fellow group members. So this means that participants can share the whiteboard, they can upload files and applications with the rest of the group, as I just mentioned. This is an example of what a screen capture of what one might look like, although it's, you know, it's kind of an example right here. This is an example where folks are using a chat. So they're talking with each other. So it might be that these students do not have a microphone, or not using their telephone, their smartphone to communicate with each other. Well, since a lot of students nowadays are well familiar with texting, chatting is pretty much the same thing. They can communicate back and forth with each other. So moderators, you as a moderator, you can share files with any single one or multiple groups if you need to. So I've got a question here. Oops. And that question is, Christine asked, is that a default for breakout groups? Everyone is a presenter, whereas everyone in the main rooms are participants. Yes, that is the default. In fact, that's something you would want. You'd want to be able to give your students the ability to collaborate with each other, and so you're going to want to have those tools for your students to be able to do that. Yes, Joyce.
My question is, when I go into the breakout room, say I have on this my screen that what I want them to discuss. When
Mm-hmm.
they go into the breakout room, does that screen disappear from the main room?
Yeah. No, it stays in the main room, but what's going to happen is that you're going to have to send that file or that whatever that content into the discussion, into the breakout groups. And I will walk you through the steps of doing that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so we talked about having the ability to move and save files from the breakout rooms back to the main room, which is the opposite. So if your students are uploading content in the breakout rooms and they're sharing information, they actually will allow you the ability to take that content and share it with the group within the main room, which is really nice. So it goes back and forth. You can share content to the breakout rooms, students can share their content to the main room after they've worked on something. So consider suggesting that participants document their collaboration in some way. How are they going to do that? Well, you might ask people to take a screen capture of anything that they shared and collaborated. So they might be working in the whiteboard and might have typed some materials on. Or maybe there's somebody who is the so-called designated scribe who's taking notes, and maybe they're taking notes in their own PowerPoints on their own computer, or they might have done it in Microsoft Word. Now, if you want to share that information, I'll show you how students can do that. Share their files up into the breakout group. But if they're using Microsoft Word, they want to save it as a PDF file because Collaborate will share primarily three types of files: an image file, a PowerPoint file, and a PDF file. There is a way to share any other file, but that has to do with using application share. And it's probably a little bit beyond the ability of students at this point to be using that. Okay. So I also mentioned that you as the moderator monitor the groups, just as you would in a face-to-face environment where you go from one group to the other. You physically walk from one group, you listen to what's going on. Maybe you might want to intervene if there is a need to facilitate. You can do that. They can ask questions. You can ask questions. You can share information, and then you can go off into another group. So you can do the same thing digitally or virtually as well in the breakout groups. So after the breakout groups are started, you can move between groups to monitor them, and you can assign yourself to any one group. You see and hear what others are doing in that group, and this includes anything that they're sharing, anything that they're saying, anything if they have a video on, or anything that they're chatting. You can participate in that. So if you want to see how the other groups are doing, you need to join these groups, and I will also walk you through the steps of how you would do that. So when you come toward the end of the session, the breakout groups, and you might give them a specific time frame, maybe 15 minutes to work on a group. You want to make sure that they have an opportunity to document in some way what they're working on. That could be a screen capture, as I mentioned it. Most computers have that ability to do a screen capture and save it as an image, or some other documentation like PowerPoint or like I said, Microsoft Word, saving it as a PDF. So you want to make sure that they have enough time to be able to do this before ending the groups. All right, so now, once again, I'm going to come back to this in greater detail, but this, in a nutshell, is how you would move yourself between groups by selecting Join Group in the participant panel, and you can also move other participants from one group to another. Okay, don't worry about it not being clear. We'll be working a lot with this little circle with three dots. We're calling it a kebab, and that's where the magic happens, and you'll see what that looks like when we are in the session. All right, so let's get started. All right, so maybe I should have had this as a very first slide, but when you come into the session, in the lower right-hand corner, you're going to see this little purple tab, looks like a Nexium tab like this, and that's the Collaborate panel. When you click on that, it opens up. And I just want you to look on the left-hand side. By default, the first item that you see right here is the chat area, right? The chat area. And this is where, of course, where you can just type something in, and everyone's made great use of that feature to communicate, asking me questions. The next item is the attendees button. And if you click on it, in fact, I'm going to ask you guys to click on it now so you can see maybe perhaps there's somebody in the session that you recognize, maybe from your own department. Or maybe it's somebody that you play tennis with on a regular basis. It's always nice to see who you're sharing space with, even if it's virtual space. Okay, and so when you click on that, you're going to see a list of folks. Now, this is just a screen capture from a practice session that I had last week. And most of these folks, I think all of these folks, are actually my colleagues at Faculty Development. But you'll see something different when you check yourself by clicking on that attendees button. So the next one right here, and I'm not going to ask you to do this, but I'm going to do it, is to click on the share icon. And this, as a moderator, you'll be able to do this yourself. When you click on the share icon, you're going to see a lot of these different options. One is to share the whiteboard and application. Certainly, if you've used Blackboard Collaborate in the past, this is going to be familiar. What you may not have noticed, or maybe you saw but you didn't really understand what it was, is this Breakout Groups link. And so in order to activate that breakout, you would be clicking right here on the link, Breakout Groups. So this is what you would expect to see. Now, once again, this is a screen capture of a previous session. If I was able to show you my screen, I guess this is the part that's really off the screen, and I'm not able to do that, so that's why I'm done a screen capture. You would see everybody in the session. Now, it actually lists, let's see. Oh, you don't see the attendee button? Is anybody else not seeing the attendee button? Actually, this is not a rhetorical question. This is a real question. Oh, okay. So, Jean, you probably may not have opened it up, the session, but don't worry about it. This is something that you will see when you're in your own session. Okay. All right, Jean. So here, let me just go back. So we're opening up the Breakout Groups link. And right here, we have a listing of people who are in the workshop, or in the session right here. You can see that it lists 4 people, including myself as a moderator, but there are also 12 more people. And if I clicked on this link, it would open up and I'd see all 12 people, as well as the ability to create groups. As you see right here, there's a circle with a plus sign. Right now, it's opened up several groups, but I can add more groups if necessary. Okay, so how do I do that? What's a fast, and I hate to say quick and dirty, but a fast and convenient way of doing that? Well, you have some options when you're going to be when you're creating groups and assigning people to those groups. So if you look up here, the assign groups right here, you can see that you have a drop-down arrow, and that drop-down arrow gives you 2 options. One is to custom assign, so you actually will select individuals and put them into specific groups or categories, or have them randomly assigned. And sometimes that's the fastest, easy way to do this. One question that you might have is, hey, can I create my groups in advance, and then when the folks come in, I can actually do it? Unfortunately, that is not a feature that is available. In addition, if you use groups in your Blackboard course, they are not associated with the breakout groups that we have here in Blackboard Collaborate. That would be a great feature. That would be a great tie-in, and it has been raised to Blackboard. I'd like to see that myself, but that's not the case. You can choose to select whether you want to have take the time to custom assignment, where you actually are selecting what groups people are being put into, or random assignment. I also want to mention that you have the ability to have attendees switch groups, and I want to spend just a minute on this right here, because there are folks in the session here who actually have had this interesting situation in which you want to be able to put individuals into specific groups, but it takes time, especially if you have many people in the session and you want to put them into a number of different groups. I am proposing this so that if you select this, if you click on this button, and then you do the random assignment, so people now are in whatever group they're in, you can actually tell them in advance and say, okay, these people belong in group 1. These people belong in group 2. These people belong in group 3. And they could, in fact, manually put themselves in the appropriate groups. It's going to save a lot of time. Of course, you're always going to have individuals who put themselves in the wrong group, but that's just the way of the world. Sometimes people are really good at following instructions, and maybe sometimes you need to say it a couple of times so that folks can get it. But that's a nice option so that you can give students the ability to do that, so it'll save you some time. All right. Also, you have the ability to change the names of the group. Now, by default, it's going to give the the groups, group 1, group 2, group 3. It's not very informative. All right, but if you click on a particular group, use the moderator, you can actually type over this and give it a name that's more meaningful to you. And that would be, for instance, in my own course, I have team beneficence, team commitment, team compassion. So I might actually create the groups and have them stuck, listed like this or labeled like this. Unfortunately, they don't stay. Once you leave the session, they all disappear. But you can do this and give more meaning to participation in groups. All right. So now once you've done that, once you've selected the individuals, and in this case right here, I've chosen random assignment, it's going to automatically put people into groups. And it's going to decide, well, if we need 5 groups, and we have 2 groups of 3 attendees and 3 groups of 2 attendees, so it's 12 individuals. I can say, no, I want 6 groups of 2 people each, or I want 2 groups of 6 people each. You can actually use this. You click the drop-down menu, and you have the choice to be able to do that. Once again, you can allow attendees to switch groups if you need to, or if you don't like the way it worked out, what individuals ended up with what groups, you can use the randomization process by clicking on Shuffle Attendees, and it will reassign people to different groups. Maybe the second time will be better, and you'll feel a bit more comfortable with that. All right. So once you've decided that these are this configuration of people assigned to what groups, you want to click, and that's up there. You want to click on the Start button below to begin the group activity. And you're going to see this sign. It's going to say Start Breakout Groups. Now, this right here is a screen capture of me, and so since I didn't assign myself to a group, it'll say that I'm in the main group. But when I assign you to the different groups, it'll say that you'll be in group 1, group 2, group 3, or if I've changed the name to something else, it will identify that. Okay. So now students are in their assigned groups, except me as the instructor. So right now I'm still seeing this from the instructor perspective. I'll show you what it looks like from the student's perspective in just a minute. But as you can see, Deanne Cabrera is in the main group. But if I look over here in group 1, I have 3 people in group 1, Megan, Mike, and Pranav. In group 2, I have 3 people, Sylvia, Stephanie, and Tracy. Okay, and then if I was to scroll down, I could see the other people and what group they are assigned to. Okay, so I'm going to click on the Share Content button below, just so that I wanted to show you this. As a moderator, this is what you would see. You can see that in the breakout rooms, whereas before there wasn't much activity going on. Now you see a circle with like a square inside that. This signifies that the breakout group is ongoing. It's in progress. You also see that you as the moderator, it says that you're in the main room. Okay, so I know what's going on. This is sort of a status update. So if I click here on Share Files again, this is where I would share a file. Someone asked me how I would post content into the breakout groups. So I would go into Add Share just as I would in the main room. But right here, say I select this particular file, and I want to click on that 3 dots. And those 3 dots have a particular designation. They're called a kebab. And you'll notice the similarities between these 3 dots here and a real kebab. I just happened to pick one that had 3 pieces of whatever that is. It looks like chicken and maybe some red bell pepper. So the kebab is where a lot of the magic happens. So when you click on the kebab, you're going to have a drop-down menu, and that drop-down menu is going to allow you to remove the file, which I don't want to do. I don't even want to rename the file. But now because I've started the groups, it says I can share this file with groups. Okay. So if I click on that link, I have an option as to who I want to share it to, and I've selected all of them here. But when you come in, most likely these will not be checked. So you say, no, I'm going to check it just with group 1 or group 2, or I want to select this top one, and it's going to share them with all the groups at the same time. That's really convenient rather than having to do one at a time. However, there might be a pedagogical reason where you have different materials for each group, and so you would do this for each group. Once you've selected that, you click the Share Now button down here at the bottom, and it gets pushed out to the group. Now, if you needed to have a different file, as I just mentioned, to a specific group, a different breakout group, you would repeat the process and then just identify what group you wanted that to be sent to. All right. So once you've sent it out, you as a member of a group will now see the content posted in this area right here. This is where you share your content. It's the same area you would share your content if you were in the main group, but now you're in a breakout group. In fact, right here it says you are in group 1. Okay. So now, as the instructor, as the presenter, you can advance the slide by clicking on this little arrow. There are 20 slides here. You would advance it like this, and you can talk with individuals. Now, typically, and I'll give and the example I'm going to give you with our own activity, I'm just going to share a PowerPoint slide that just has one slide. Okay. Now, students can upload their own content by clicking on the Share Files link. Let's see if I identify down here this Shared Files, and then going up to content, I should say, and then Share Files, and then Add Files, just as we do when we want to add our own materials. Yes, Susan asked, can students in their breakout rooms still communicate with the moderator in the main room, at least through private chat, if nothing else? No, that instructor needs to be in the session. All right, so, and that instructor will put themselves in the session. Just as I mentioned before, where the individual can go from one group to another group in a physical location, you as the moderator can actually put yourself in that. And I'll show you that in just a few seconds. Thank you so much, Susan. So the status update right here is that it's telling me that I'm in the main room, which I know. I says, but now I wish myself, this is Susan, you anticipated me beautifully. Thank you. I want to move myself to a specific group. So I'm going to go to where my name is. I'm going to click on that kebab. We're all familiar with that kebab. And there's a drop-down menu. And now I can select where I want to be in that, including the ability to create a new group. So say I want to go into group 1. So if I click on group 1, I now see that I can be in group 1, but I'm not in group 1 yet until I hit the update button down below. Once I hit the update button, as you can see, it's moving me. It's moving me into group 1. This is what I will see. And then I'll be a member of a group 1. Let's see. So you can see that if I go back to the area where it has the number of attendees, I can see that Dan Cabrera now is in group 1. And the number of people has gone from 3 to 4. So if I want to talk with them, I can talk. I can hear what they're saying. I can communicate back and forth. And I can even upload content specific for this group as well. Now, if I need to move to a different group, yes, Joyce?
I just want to mention today, or actually yesterday, I did breakout groups not knowing what I was doing. And it was interesting because when I went into the room, I could hear the student say, "She's here."
Well, just imagine. I mean, it's a lot less conspicuous in a digital environment. But if in fact it was a physical environment, they would know for sure that you were there. However, yeah, they will see you coming into the session like that, and they'll probably act a little bit different. But just warn them in advance that I will be coming in and visiting. That is funny, though. Thank you, Joyce. Okay, so if I need to move myself to different, I'm going to click on that kebab again, and I have the option right here to move to another group. So I'm going to select another group, and I can actually go to group 2, to group 3, to group 4. I can do it as many times as I need to. But I'm going to go back to the main room so we can proceed with this. So I've decided to do that. I'm going to click on that. I'm going to click the update button. And now it says I'm returning to the main room, which is great. So here I am. And once again, it says the main room. There is one person in the main room, and that is me. I am in the main room. Okay. Now I can end the breakout group session. This has been there all along at the very top. It says that I'm in the main room, but right here there is the circle with a square in it. If I click that, that would end the session. However, I want to remind you folks that that you really want to give the students some sort of parameters in terms of the activity. Say we're going to be working on this activity for 15 minutes or 20 minutes or however long you want to do it. I just want you also to know that if groups have added any file to the breakout group, then the moderator, then you will be able to share that in the main room. And you would do that if they've uploaded some content to their breakout room by going into share files, add files, and you'd have the list of all the stuff you have up here. But you'd also have this at the very bottom of this section. This is what you would see: breakout group files. And in this this screen capture, I had group 3 post something. So if I click on that, it would open up and I'd see whatever they had, and I'd be able to share that particular file. If all of you guys had posted something in today's activity, I would see all of those things as well. Unfortunately, that's not something that you'll be able to see because it's going to be in my side menu. Just wanted to mention that though. Okay, so you would click on the add files. But once again, a reminder is to make sure that you provide time for students to do whatever it needs to be able to document in some way, document whatever the work is, whether it's a screen capture or whatever they happen to be doing that they were working on before ending the groups. Okay, so you want to give your students a few minutes warning that you are ending the session. It might simply mean that at 10 minutes, I want you to start closing things up of the 15-minute break. Or you might actually go into each particular session and says, hey, I'm here to remind you that it's over. Now, there is a timer function, but I have to say that and that timer function should be viewable in all of the groups, and it's like a countdown. However, that has been turned off. I actually talked to someone yesterday in Blackboard Collaborate support, and they said because of the really increased demand, that is not available currently. So you just want to make sure that they're aware that students are aware that there is a time limit, and they should know that 5 minutes before the end time they should be closing up. All right, so all the groups that have ended, the moderator can share content to in the main room if they have posted content. And once again, when you want to end the breakout groups and bring everyone back to the main room, you would select this End Breakout Groups, this button up here. You'll find this at the top of the participants panel or beside the breakout groups, that same area that I showed you before several times, and it will end the group. And then they will see that they're being brought back to the main room. So after you end that groups, all the participants have returned to the main room. Okay. Do I have a question?
Oh, I'm sorry. My mic went on.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine. Not a problem. All right. So I just wanted to show you. I ended the session. This is once again the screen capture, and I see that all these people are in the attendees area, the participants or attendees area, which is great. If I advance the slide, if I click on the share content, once again, I want to share. This is that area that I had mentioned before. We had the circle with the square in it. This is the other location where if we were still in a session, you could turn off the or end the breakout group sessions. As you can see, nothing is in here, which is a verification that we have in fact ended the breakout groups. All right. So I have some questions, but the questions that I have will have to wait because I'm now going to put you in a breakout group. Okay, so all those things I talked about, I'm actually going to do. And so what I will do once you're in the breakout rooms, if you have a mic, you can talk with each other or you can use the chat message. I will upload a file for you to see. This is an assignment. This is just a one-slide assignment, and it's going to be asking you to come up with some ideas on how you might, what might be an activity, a group activity, a collaboration activity that you might want to try, something you would do in a face-to-face environment that you might want to try and collaborate in the breakout groups. All right, so I'm going to randomly assign people to the groups. Let me just see. I'm going to, let's see, I've got 3. Okay, I'm going to have 4 groups, and I see that I have 4 groups of 3 individuals. All right. And now I'm going to start. So once I start, you're going to see that you're now being taken to your own group. So for instance, Jahi and Samir and Ying are going to be in group 1, and Christine, Melissa, and Natalie are in group 2, and the rest of you will find out in just a minute. And shortly, I will send you all this thing to look at. I'm giving you 5 minutes to do this, and I'm bringing you back at 5 minutes. So think about how you might want to respond. I will ask for a volunteer that represents each group, although maybe just 1 or 2 will present. Okay, here we go.